what we are doing all of the time is looking for what do we need to do in terms of procurement? How do we very much what you'll see primarily here is how do we augment and utilize third parties to help us get things done? And the way that I look at staffing overall is we know that there are peaks and valleys of production, of generation, but there's also peaks and valleys associated with work. And so we do use contractors significantly to help us with those peaks. When we hire someone, and you all know that we've been in a strategic hiring freeze, basically looking to replace the positions that we need, but we're not looking in any way to expand our headcount at all. And we're trying to be as prudent as possible, which has financially helped us. But we also think about when we hire an employee, we're paying for their salaries, their benefits, and that's a long-term commitment, particularly their benefits, because you think about it in terms of them being active and then when they move into retirement. So oftentimes it's easier and actually more cost-effective for us to hire contractors when we can use them for peaks of jobs and activities and then bring them down. So you will see that. Now, I will say that I have been looking at the control environment around our procurement, and this month, again, you will find that we have one more issue again where the controls around the procurement weren't great. You heard one in, I think it was the February timeframe, and we needed authorization to pay the remaining invoices. Again, we have another situation where we need to pay the remaining invoices. They have not been paid. We've gone through that, looked at them, reevaluated them, validated them, and we've looked at the controls around that. What I've asked the financial services team, primarily Corey, to help us with is relooking at our procurement controls because we can't keep having these front-end issues on invoice processing. So there's one procurement that has a challenge with that. That is 6C. But what Corey's going to do is talk to you about, we're going to have a tone at the top. We already have. We've been having a lot of conversations about controls being tighter around our procurement. And then we don't have any issue on the procurement and timing of 6B, but 6C, you'll also get a preview of what happened there.
Thank you, Paula. Good afternoon, Chair Dr. Mackey, good to be here. Trustees, also good to be here in person. So appreciate the intro, Paula. Really good tee up. I wanted to come here, provide a little bit of color around internal controls broadly, and also talk about our global focus that Paula mentioned on the culture and the mindset perspective around internal controls here at CPS. And as Paula alluded to, also acknowledge the opportunity for enhanced work within our procurement area. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started here on the objectives. We have 3 of them today. I'll provide some context on the overall control environment. As Paul alluded to, we'll focus on briefly some of the recent lapses in procurement controls. And then we'll talk about the positive change that our teams are trying to drive in our control culture, and we're doing that through partnerships and through trainings. So on the next slide here for the agenda in alignment with the objectives, I'll hit on that enterprise level control. And then we'll introduce some of the internal controls team members. We'll put some names and faces out there and then talk about the approach our teams are doing. And then we'll close with some next steps. So on the next slide, broadly, as Paul's alluded to, we have a strong internal controls foundation here at CPS Energy. We've had various different internal trainings here at CPS Energy. We've had various kind of awareness campaigns, and so there's been a lot of work done over the last handful of years. And as Paula mentioned, we've had a really great tone at the top, support from her and from Gary as well. In spite of that, we've still seen an uptick in some of those recent related internal control issues in the procurement area. But nonetheless, the message is here, we're going to continue to work closely with the business units and really enhance that control culture. The control culture is a big word because we can do a lot of education and awareness training, but really getting our folks to see their process start to finish as the control built into that process rather than an add-on or an extra activity. That's really the essence and substance that we want to continue to improve upon through the organization. And so here's a look at the team here on the next slide. Of course, you can see Gary and myself going left to right, and then we have Orlando Flores, who leads our Enterprise Risk Management Solutions area, and you've seen him often in our risk meetings. But within the Enterprise Risk Management and Solutions team, there is an internal controls group, and I want to introduce those folks. virtually. Jennifer Barrera is our manager of internal controls, and you can see by the number of letters after her name, she is well credentialed for that position. And also on her team is Roger Gonzalez. He's been with our team. He's the newest member, but he comes from our audit services department under Matt Mills' leadership. So he was ready to hit the ground running. It's been a great addition to our team. And then lastly, we have Jimmy Cool. He's a CPA. He's been with our team for a couple of years, but he came from our accounting department prior to that. So again, a lot of folks here. We have an experienced team here in financial services. We're leveraging that tone at the top, and these are the folks that are going to be partnering with the business units to strengthen that control culture. And also, I'll note, we do a lot of partnership with the Audit Services Division as well, and collectively, I think it's a really strong group of folks to partner and work on this effort with. So we'll go to the next slide. Let's talk about kind of the approach looking forward, kind of three big buckets. The first and foremost is increased awareness, and this is a continuous effort that's been going on and continues to go on, just about the importance of internal controls. And it's really at all employee levels, throughout the organization. And that's the message. And we do this through trainings and through different outreaches, but that is a continuous effort. The second one is really expanding the consultative services. And this is something, that's been a focus for us, here recently. We really do want to get out in the organization, better understand those business processes, help the organization understand their process and the impact of internal controls, and ultimately, how can we help design and enhance control activities? And our organization is really at an advantage to be able to partner with the organization kind of side by side as they work through their activities, and really kind of break down some of that jargon too, translate it into kind of real world language for them. And the last item is really just correcting issues, of course. And not only our teams going in there when there are opportunities, but really all of the senior leaders have been challenged, and they've bought into this to culturally and procedurally really dive deeply through the organization to find and fix problems. So in terms of next step, pretty straightforward here. We're going to continue to leverage the Paula's and Gary's tone at the top, prioritization of this issue. It's always important to have that leadership and that perspective at a very high level. We'll continue to collaborate with audit services. We've really had a great partnership the last handful of years on the enterprise-wide internal controls training that we've rolled out, and we're continuing to put forth to build rather another version this year for our frontline field office folks, and so that is kind of work in progress. And then continually consult with the organization to help be proactive, do spot checks where necessary, have the organization be able to do their own spot checks and build that muscle. And then as Paul alluded to, we're going to continue to focus and spend some extra time with the procurement teams. Jennifer's already started diving into that, and that'll probably be a focus here, in the next handful of months for sure. And then lastly, and always continue to reinforce, how throughout the organization, how we all own our own risks, and we've talked about risk a lot in other presentations, but we own our own risks and our controls. And so with that, the takeaway is we'll continue to come back from a financial services perspective and update you on our progress on how those kind of macro efforts are going throughout the organization. With that, I will pause, sir, and entertain any questions before the next presenter.